It's a great time. First of all, it's a big privilege and an honor to be sharing stage with such tall marketing leaders and all women. So thank you for your time. It's a big topic, and I wanted to start off with a small rapid fire of sorts so that we can get your quick point of view. And the point of view would be more personal. So not what your organization is, obviously, but more from your own point of view. And just give me one option out of the two. I'll give you two options. So let's start it off. And this goes for all three of you. So the first question is efficiency or effectiveness?
Effectiveness.
Effectiveness.
Both.
Okay. Big data or small data?
Big data.
Small data.
Big data.
That's interesting. We are having difference of answers, so it's good. Data quality or quantity?
Quality.
Quantity. Quality.
Great. Upper funnel or lower funnel? This is a very interesting one. Upper funnel or a lower funnel?
Upper funnel.
Upper funnel.
Both.
Okay. Macro or nano influencers?
Nano. Macro.
Nano.
Okay, great. Online marketplace or brand's own retail site?
Online marketplace.
Marketplace.
Mix.
And the last of the rapid fire is it more device ID or cookie-based targeting, or is it more along the lines of contextual and understanding what users are actually going through?
Contextual. Both.
Contextual.
Okay, that's great. So while we have some inputs from both of you, from all three of you, I would want to go into a bit deep dive and try to understand, much more in deep. So let's start with Ibu Webby first. And the question would be, what are the two big challenges the marketers are facing currently? And what are the key aspects? You can give me just two answers.
Yeah, currently, right, the market, the consumer is very dynamic. And things change very rapidly. And one day to the other day, this week to the other week, everything can be changed. So the challenge is really for the marketers is really to see what they need to do. Sometimes because people or the consumer really rely on something that in the hits or what people usually call viral, lots of marketers tends to do something very tactical. And it's become a trap for a brand. Maybe if it's already like a big brand, that settled brand, it's okay. But for the brand that just started, if they're doing too much tactical, they just forget to build in for the long term of the brand itself. And that's really the challenge. And secondly, also because of the opportunity to invest in so many platforms, with the money always have a limit in a company, right? So it's also become a challenge to see in which platform or which type of activities or communication they need to spend more and invest. Yeah.
That's an interesting take. Ibu Eka, anything from your side?
Yes. So I think the point of view might not be very different from what we have heard from Ibu Feby. But I would actually like to crystallize it in 2 points, I think. Of course, there are many other points, but this is very prevalent. Number one is really about growing brands in a fragmented world. Because, of course, we have our brands as our big assets. However, at the same time, we are seeing that not only the platforms, the consumers, the behavior, the journeys are really getting more complex, but it is also requiring a bit of customization here and there in order to really address the real opportunity. And the second one is really about the accountability, which is really about driving superior return out of our investment, our activities, and translating our point of view of how market works into our optimized actions.
See, great. Moving on to PRITIKA, this one more about, Ibu Eka mentioned about accountability and brands looking at keys. How is measurement a very important criteria in today's marketing world? Like, what is the future of measurement, and what do you take on it?
Thanks for that question, Sharik. So, I mean, firstly, I just want to say that, the sessions this morning and afternoon have been so good, and there's a lot of common themes coming up. And at DoubleVerify, we believe that the future of measurement is in privacy-friendly attention metrics. So it's also good to hear that attention has been discussed quite a bit. And just to give a bit of context, I recently came across a study which was quite shocking in terms of the numbers. So it said that in the 1970s, a consumer on average saw about 600 to 1,600 ads per day. And in 2007, that increased up to 5,000 ads per day. And currently, it's anything between 6,000, 10,000, perhaps a bit more today because it's 11/11, so maybe 20, I don't know. But the point I'm trying to get to here is that there's a lot of brands and there's a lot of competition to get consumers' attention. And it's getting tougher and tougher as consumers are getting smarter. So at DoubleVerify specifically, when we measure attention, we look at the exposure of the ad and the engagement within the ad as well. And we look at lots of different data points. So, specifically with exposure, we look at things like how long was an ad viewed. And this is really important specifically for things like video, moving away from traditional KPIs like just viewability as a silo. With engagement, we look at how a user interacts with an ad, for example. So did they hover over it? Did they make adjustments to the volume? Did they change the screen orientation? And so, really building on this foundation of quality, brands can then drive real business outcomes. So, just as an example, again, we worked with a client who wanted to build customer loyalty, and they ran some campaigns based on that. And they went really granular into looking at insights such as, what were the days of the week that drove the highest attention, or what were the targeting tactics that drove the highest attention, and then started making small tweaks based on that, and that had a massive impact on the campaign itself. So essentially, the point I'm trying to get to is that attention is definitely the future.
So definitely measurement is key in terms of how we evaluate the performance. So Ibu Eka, wanted to understand, we have seen some M&A research on what are the impact, how do we evaluate media? And most of the research is that it's the impact on business metrics that is the main key driving. Yes. But apart from business metrics and sales, what in your opinion would be two other indicators for, how do you evaluate your media investments?
Right. I would actually like to see this as like fast data and slow data. And basically fast data is the one that we can look at immediately after something is coming up. It could be the metrics that you're talking about, including sales, market shares, etc. But then there are also a whole bunch of parameters which actually help us predict what the future might be, whether we are actually bringing something right for the longer term. So that actually includes some of the trended data on, for instance, your like brand metrics or mental metrics. So that is really capturing what is it in the consumer's mind. If you want to be more stringent, then put it into what's your share of endorsement and what's your share of strength in the mental measures. And secondly, things that is really happening at home. So I mean, there are several set of data available which allows us to understand whether somebody is a new user of a brand, lapsing user of a brand, and basically that help us inform whether the kind of activities at scale that we are doing really brings in the desired outcome that we want.
Got it. So I think, as you mentioned, data is definitely we're looking at. But last 10 years, we have seen a massive digital transformation, and there's immense amount of data flowing now, right? And this is a question for Ibu Webi and Ibu. How do you define which data points are important and key, and how do you translate that into your media investments? So we can start with Ibu Webi first.
Okay. So it's basically right. Data, yes, data is very important. But sometimes that as a marketer, we think that to get all the data that possible, it's also the best thing, which at the end of the day, we're doing nothing with the data. So I think what is more important is really to understand what is our objective with the data. And then we start to gather all the data. And from the data itself, is actually we can do so many things, starting from learning about the behavior of our consumers, who prefer to this brand, that brand, or type of products, how they decide on their decisions for buying, starting from the awareness, consideration, and then purchase at the end of the day. So it's really so many things that we can learn actually, or not only learn, but also to put an action plan using the data. But again, it's always need to be back on what is the key objective that we want to do with this data.
Okay, so it's objective driven. Ibu Eka, your
Perhaps
point.
if I may add, I think these days, because of the new behaviors that people are displaying, a lot more data becomes available. And I think the purpose on how do we plan to use this to inform our action, and whether we are also utilizing this data as a way to determine who should first receive our message, who are our priority consumers, who are much closer to the brand and would be your lowest hanging fruit, and so on and so forth. And that is very much with a purposeful capture, with the way you analyze the data and slice and dice accordingly. That should then flow into your platform ecosystem, brand marketing ecosystem, then really infuse that kind of knowledge in there.
That's great. That's a great answer. Now coming on to the data piece itself, and I think this is for Pritika. We all know that at the third-party cookies, how is it going to affect, and how is it, what are agencies and partners and publishers doing to solve for it?
I think most importantly, the initial panic that was around has sort of died down, which is great. So there's still light at the end of the tunnel. Based on our conversation with brands, agency partners, and publishers as well, there's definitely a shift in mindset and a shift in terms of a move away from user level targeting, because that will become more and more difficult as browsers start locking down on user level data. So where that's going into now is more towards contextual targeting. And contextual, as we all know, it's not a new concept. It's been around for many years, but it's coming back now, at a different level altogether. So, just as an example, Feby, if you were looking at shopping for sneakers, right, for example, now instead of bombarding you with sneaker ads, what would happen in this environment is that if you're looking at content around training for a half marathon, you would see a sneaker ad. So it's a lot more relevant, and it makes your experience a lot better because, just like you mentioned, consumers, you need to understand your consumers and meet them where they are. Again, going back to, I think Edwin made a point during his session about personalization without being too intrusive or using data that can be intrusive for consumers, right? So this is where contextual and AI targeting strategies really go in to personalize that experience. Yeah.
Right. So personalization of data using contextual AI. And this next one is from Webby. Could you share some examples of how marketers, or in your opinion, this first-party data that we are curating can be utilized for when? Just maybe two examples.
Yeah, so first-party data, it's actually for the brand, it's like a treasure. Because this is really the data that you get from people who attracted with your brands. They already come into our pot, basically. So we just need to go into details and understand who are they and what we can do with them. So we can learn and even create more engagement with them. So it can have a very quick win from just having, kind of building this CRM base with them. So you can continue to remind them that, hey, this is also another time for you to engage with our brand again, to buy another set of products. Or you can actually also increase their basket size by showing them this is the benefit that we can give you if you do with the full range of our product, for instance. Or even is actually we also can introduce them with a bigger scale of our products portfolio, for instance. That's one thing on the direct impact. But the other thing is actually when we start continue building these two ways communications, having the conversation with them, we can create and make them become our advocate. And it's not easy. So when we already have this first party data, create our consumers become like the ecosystem for us. We have our own troops actually to do the advocacy for our brands. And this is not easy. And usually it's more impactful rather than using the normal, what we call KOL, because they have the engagement with our brands.
Got it. Engagement with the brand, bringing in consumer closer. Ibu Eka, any inputs from your side on this?
Very similar cases, and perhaps in addition, we would also like to utilize the first party data as an input into our larger activities of prospecting, etc., through some lookalike modeling, for instance. So I think there is a lot of relevance in being able to capture, operate, really do lots of things basis your proven consumer interests.
So we just have 2 minutes. I have a couple of questions left, and Ibu Eka, this one's for you. We see the commerce has been changing into a very hybrid model now where it's not just e-commerce anymore. People are going on social commerce, looking at live shopping, and a hybrid commerce as well. So how do you see this evolving? If you can just wrap up quickly, maybe a couple of points.
So actually, e-commerce will still be e-commerce, I think. There is a lot of activities which are now being made so easy because it is now then coming so much closer to consumers. But I think the point more is about in the future or even now, there might not be, say, digital consumer journey because it becomes consumer journey, be it the fluidity between online, offline, digital, or many other medium. Because as we saw earlier in the morning, it's really about the discovery and all of the evaluation, which is really like as people are doing all the refinement of their decisions, many of the digital ecosystem, whether it's a brand ecosystem, whether it's a partner ecosystem, or it's like completely world outside with all of the content, is actually helping people make decision. Then the rest will be about all of the frictionless kind of experience that bridge those process.
That's great. All right, so as we are closing in into 2023 now, there's a lot of noise about, while the data has been there, but looking at how innovative it can be, like looking at AI, AR, and trying to connect metaverse into things. So I would take a last take from all of you, starting with Pritika first. How do you see 2023 evolving, and what would be the key things that the marketers and agencies and brands should look at?
I think that there's a lot, but we have a few seconds left, so I'll just say I think 2023 will be the year definitely of contextual conversations around attention, but I also want to copy a little bit of what you said, Ibu, yes, about accountability. So as an industry, I think we're all responsible, so we are definitely going to be accountable to make all of those changes in a privacy-friendly way.
Right. So initially, I very much in line with the 2 points earlier. I think it's going to be continuing year of fragmentation, but also accountability.
Great.
Yeah. To add it on that, probably it's also the year for integrations because no longer we can see separately between online, offline, digital, or traditional. Everything's going to be integrated into one for the total consumer journey.
That's great. So seamless integration, accountability, innovation, and engagement. So I think that's great inputs that we are leaving the stage with. So thank you so much for your time, and thanks everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you once again to all of our panelists. We'd like to invite you to stay on stage and maybe step forward for our official photo with MMA 2022. Once again, thank you for your time, effort, and of course, knowledge in this discussion.